What's up guys, Firewolf here, showing you the ASRock Phantom Gaming PGO32UFS. This is a 32-inch WOLED gaming monitor that features a dual display mode, which starts you up at a beautiful razor sharp 4K at 240Hz and can switch to 1080p, but at a blazing fast 480Hz refresh rate using a dedicated button on the back of the monitor. This is one of the biggest gaming features to have on a monitor because it gives you a choice between amazing high fidelity 4K gaming or maximizing your speed and responsiveness for competitive gaming at the cost of resolution. Not only that, but you also get true blacks with OLED, great color accuracy with a 99% DCI-P3 coverage, which is also factory calibrated for Delta E less than 2, AMD FreeSync Premium Pro, which also works with NVIDIA G-Sync for tear-free gaming, and an ultra-low 0.03 millisecond response time. SDR brightness is rated at 275 nits with a peak of 1300 nits in HDR. Now, one very unique feature of this monitor is a built-in Wi-Fi antenna on the stand that supports up to Wi-Fi 7 and could give you better signal reception, especially if you have your PC positioned in the bottom of your desk if you're using Wi-Fi. Now, like most WOLED panels, the PGO32UFS also has an anti-glare matte coating that I know some of you guys might not like, but the upside of this coating means you'll have an easier and better experience using it in a very bright setup while still retaining the inky blacks. The PGO32UFS is also stacked with many connectivity options. You're getting two HDMI 2.1 ports, two DisplayPort 1.4, one USB-C port with up to 65 watts of power delivery, a USB upstream port with 3 USB-A ports, and a 3.5mm headphone out. I like how ASRock is giving you an extra display port and an extra USB-A port compared to other gaming monitors, and while it doesn't have the latest DisplayPort 2.1, DisplayPort 1.4 is more than enough for this display. Priced at around $900, this might be a great choice for gamers and productive power users looking for the ultimate OLED experience. Huge thanks to ASRock for sending this monitor out to me so I can showcase to you guys. So let's unbox the PGO32UFS gaming monitor, and as you can see, it comes in this really nice brown box. Alright, now we got that out of the way. The first thing we're going to see is your quick start guide, followed by a color calibration factory report, letting you know that this panel has been calibrated for an accuracy of Delta E less than 2, which I love to see. Alright, here is the bottom feed portion of the stand. Let's go ahead and peel this out real quick. Comes in this really nice black color. We can see the Phantom Gaming logo right on top. It has like a holographic effect here. All right, next up we have the arm portion of the stand. I gotta say it is very beefy, but we still have that same holographic effect on the top. And we also have an opening here for some cable management, a Wi-Fi antenna, the same ones you use on the back of the motherboard here. This is the first time I've ever seen something like this. All right, next up is all of our cables and cords. First cable that we're gonna have is an HDMI 2.1 cable, followed by a DisplayPort cable. Next up is a USB C-to-C cable, a USB upstream cable, and here we have two Wi-Fi antenna cables here. And like I said, this is the first time I've ever seen a monitor have something like this, and that connects to the arm portion of the monitor on the back, and this supports up to Wi-Fi 7. Next up is our US power plug that connects to a separate power adapter brick here, and I personally prefer having this separate from the monitor itself. We get this really cool Phantom Gaming cable sleeve, has like a zipper end here, so you can use this to tie up some cables, which I think is really cool. All right, let's go ahead and see the actual monitor itself. All right guys, and there we have it. It's very lightweight. The only thing I'm not liking so far is that we don't have any type of screen protection. So something to consider when you're unboxing this, just make sure you're very careful with the actual display to prevent from any type of scratches. But let's go ahead and set this up. All right, now we're ready to set up the stand here. But before we go through, for those of you guys that are considering mounting this on a monitor arm, this spec-wise has VESA mounts 100 by 100. Now to access the VESA mount screw holes, you do have to unscrew all 4 screws. And once you remove the last screw, this whole piece actually comes right off, revealing the VESA hole 100 by 100. And the reason why you want to do that is because when this is on, if I were to put this VESA mount adapter, it actually does not fit. So by removing this completely, I can now fit in my VESA adapter here. Now, I'm not a huge fan of having to separate this from the actual monitor in order to fit a VESA plate. I would have preferred if this was a little bit wider, so that way you can fit a VESA mount adapter. So you're gonna have to save this just in case you ever want to revert back to using a stand. So if you're gonna go for the stand route, all we have to do is, of course, line up the top in an angle here, and you just angle that in. You're gonna hear a nice little click. All right, then you grab the bottom feed portion and you line it up. And this comes with a wingtip screw, so no tools are necessary. All right, and once it's tight, you're ready for liftoff. I think the back design looks cool and unique, especially with the integrated Wi-Fi antenna. You have two subtle RGB strips that you can control in the settings, and the stand gives you height, tilt, and swivel adjustments. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the tripod leg base. I wish they went with a flat bottom design instead, but where I think ASRock did justice is having all four sides of the screen have a seamless and clean borderless design with no logos or humps. For an even cleaner setup, I recommend mounting this on a monitor arm, which will look amazing, but keep in mind that you will lose the ability to use the Wi-Fi antenna of the stand. Now, one important note about using the included Wi-Fi antenna cables is that while it uses the standard connection method that goes behind the motherboard, if you're like me and have a modern motherboard like an Aorus motherboard that has its own easy plug connector, then you won't be able to use these cables, so just keep that in mind. Jumping into 4K single player games, this monitor delivers an incredible cinematic feel because this WOLED panel produces rich colors and truly deep blacks that holds up even in well-lit rooms or intense sunlight thanks to the anti-glare matte coating. Now, yes, it has a slight haze to it which ruins some of the clarity versus glossier displays, but it becomes less noticeable in the dark, and I personally prefer having more versatility with the matte coating. If you want even smoother gameplay by syncing up to your GPU's VRR, you'll have to manually turn on FreeSync in the monitor settings, which then allows you to enable VRR like Nvidia's G-Sync for tear-free gaming. It's not G-Sync certified, but it still works and just requires a few extra steps. Now, when it's time for competitive gaming, the PGO32UFS doesn't hold back. At 4K, you still get an ultra-fast 240Hz refresh rate and a lightning-quick 0.03 millisecond response time, but if you want the absolute fastest performance possible, you can switch it down to 1080p at 480Hz, which is perfect for fast-paced shooters or esports-style games where every millisecond counts. The dedicated dual mode button on the back makes switching very easy, and it only takes a few seconds to switch between both resolutions. While you do give up some pixel density, sharpness, and fine detail when dropping down from 4K to 1080p, the trade-off is worth it for fast-paced gaming. Your refresh rate doubles and hitting higher frame rates becomes much easier since 1080p is far less demanding on your GPU. And that's the key. Because of that, even low to mid-tier GPUs that don't perform well in 4K can still be viable to game thanks to the dual mode feature, which I think strikes a perfect balance between high fidelity AAA games and competitive games. For my console gamers, this monitor comes equipped with two HDMI 2.1 ports, giving you full support for variable refresh rate and auto low latency mode. On the PS5, that means you can take advantage of VRR all the way up to 120Hz, unlocking your console's maximum performance. It also includes built-in speakers, which are very handy if you don't have external speakers or if they don't have an aux input. I'll leave the gameplay audio at a normal level so you can hear them in action. While they're not anything special, it's definitely still nice to have as a backup just in case. Now, consoles cap out at 120Hz, so there's really no need to drop down to 1080p, so sticking with 4K will give you the best experience. Overall, PS5 Gaming looks amazing on this display, and it ticks all the right boxes for anyone looking for a 32-inch OLED monitor built for console gaming. For laptop users, the USB-C port on the PGO32UFS makes it easy and simple. Not only does it handle video output, but it also delivers up to 65 watts of power, so you can keep your device charged while you work and play. On top of that, built-in KVM switch is one of my favorite must-have features on a monitor. It allows you to plug your keyboard and mouse directly into the monitor and seamlessly switch control between a gaming PC and a laptop. Most monitors that have KVM usually max out at just 2 USB-A ports, but ASRock included an extra one, which can be very useful. For example, I'll be able to connect my Stream Deck to my monitor and have it accessible on my MacBook. Now, ASRock takes it a bit further by also including picture-by-picture and picture-in-picture settings that lets you split two separate sources. That's not something that you always see on 32-inch monitors. If you're on macOS, the 4K resolution is perfect for getting multiple scaling options, so you can choose between larger text for comfort or maximizing screen real estate, just like Apple's own Retina displays. Using my M4 MacBook Pro, I was able to push the full 240Hz refresh rate over a single USB-C connection. So getting 240Hz performance, power delivery, and KVM functionality all through one cable makes this monitor an ideal setup for laptop owners and anyone juggling multiple devices that want a cleaner and simple solution without having to use separate adapters and hubs. Alright, when it comes to navigating this monitor, all of the controls are going to be on the right side of the monitor here with 3 buttons. Right on the top is going to be the dedicated power button. The middle is going to be a 4-directional push button. And right on the bottom, we actually get a dedicated button to switch from 4K to 1080p, which I absolutely love to see, making it very easy to make that switch. Now to bring up the menu, very easy with the joystick, just click on it, and that's going to bring this menu over here. So I'm going to take you a little bit closer. All right, the very first thing we see is going to be our input selection here, so you can manually select any of these inputs. Next up, we have image setup, so you can change different presets here. So by default, it's set to standard. We have a whole bunch of different ones. Now, in order for you to see the differences, you do have to click on each one of them. Moving on, we have picture, and this is where you can set up different brightness settings. And by default, it is set to 90. You can increase it or decrease it if you like. We have contrast. You can change your aspect ratios, sharpness. We also have a dark boost here, and it starts at 50, but you can actually decrease it all the way down or all the way up depending on how you want the shadow levels to look. Then we have peak brightness. By default, it is set to high when you're on standard, but you can make that low if you wanted to, or high, whichever one you like. We have different color temperatures. By default, it's set to normal. You can change it to a cooler temperature or a warmer temperature. We have more changes for hues and saturation, different color spaces, so you can switch to sRGB, DCI-P3 for example. And then over here we have our low blue light. The next option that we have is gaming, and the very first option we see is DFR mode. Now, DFR stands for Dynamic Frequency Resolution, and this is basically the dual mode feature. Let me just go ahead and click that back in. I personally would have liked ASRock to just name this dual mode. Would have been very easy to kind of know exactly what that was, instead of having to go online and search up what DFR was. And so if you want to enable the dual mode feature and change it from 4K to 1080p, you can literally click on, or you can use a dedicated button. So there's two different ways to switch to dual mode. The next option here we have is FreeSync. Now by default, it is set to off. So if you want to enable NVIDIA G-Sync or AMD FreeSync, for example, then you do have to set this to on. Next option here we have is Game Assist. We have different aim point styles. They give you about 5 different styles. Now, the only thing I don't like is that when you select the different modes, it does not show you what it looks like. So you would have to select the mode and exit the whole screen for the actual point to actually show on the screen. You also have a sniper scope option here, so this gives you like a little box that zooms in. You also have a refresh number here that you can position at any corner of the monitor. And then the next up option here that's grayed out is KVM, and KVM would probably turn on if you have a USB-C connected to it, but right now it is grayed off. After that, we have audio, so you can adjust the different volume settings here. Next option here we have system, and here you can change the language settings. Next up option here we have picture in picture and picture by picture, so you could split the screen between two different sources or have a small little screen on the corner of your monitor so you can have two sources at the same time. So this is really useful if you have multiple devices. Here is our OLED care settings here. We have our pixel clean that you can manually enable if you'd like to. We also have screen move, and then we have a logo auto dimming feature as well. Next up we have the lighting feature here, which controls the RGB on the back of the monitor, giving you different types of modes and different color options here. We only get 3 color options, so it's not a lot of color options, but you do get some options. Next up we have information. Then we have USB update, so you can easily update the firmware of this monitor by loading it up on a USB and putting it on the back of the monitor. Next up we have OZ timeouts, your menu transparencies. We have an LED indicator control, even more options and menu controls here. The only ones that I'm going to really touch upon is display stream compression. You can manually shut this off if you don't want this, for example. And finally, you can reset all the settings. Now keep in mind that when we go to the information, we don't actually get information on what firmware this monitor is currently on. If you did a firmware update, it's really hard to tell whether or not you're even on that new update or whether you have to update or not. So that's something that I wish ASRock added. So is the ASRock Phantom Gaming PGO32UFS worth getting? With so many 4K OLED options to choose from, it comes down to 3 things: price, matte coating, and dual mode. This monitor is competitively priced and packs a lot of value compared to the LG 32GS95UE, which shares the same OLED panel and is close in price with many 32-inch QD OLED monitors. Some of the weak points for me is the tripod style stand, but I do like the idea of an integrated Wi-Fi antenna. The on-screen display could also use some polishing, but I'm really glad there's a dedicated dual mode button to make the switch very easy. The matte coating can be a deal breaker, but it really depends on your own personal setup. If this is your first jump to OLED, then chances are you're already accustomed to using a matte monitor, so you'll still enjoy the huge leap in screen quality. If you already have a semi-glossy QD OLED, then it really depends on how your lighting affected your experience. I can still game comfortably with no distraction, even with all my studio lights on, so that's a huge plus for me. But the last main thing is dual mode, and that's something that currently is available only on WOLED. So if you want to be able to experience 480 Hz for competitive gaming, but still have 4K for everything else, then this monitor might be your best choice. I recommend it. If you're interested in getting this monitor or the many tech that you've seen in this video, I will have affiliate links down below, which also helps to support the Firewolf Tech channel. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Firewolf out.